By show of hands, how many of you have AI agents in production? 1, 2. All right, are they giving you some form of ROI? Is it good? Nah. Yeah? Yes, kind of.
He's laughing.
Yeah. We'll talk later offline and figure out like what exactly is it not doing right? Is it all just hogwash in a sense? So starting with those 2 questions. All right, who else has kind of played around with agents? They've built open source. Okay, you've experimented some dummy use cases, right? All right, cool, that works. So everybody's kind of familiar with agents. I think at this point in time of the year, I've been doing some of the talks over the past 2 years, and last year was more about what is an agent? Agents 101. Now it's like, get out of here. Let's talk about exactly how they go to production. So, which is great. That means it's getting adoption. But to start off, my name is Tony Kipkemboi. I lead developer relations at CrewAI, and I'm going to be presenting today with Claire. I'm going to let her introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming out. My name is Claire Longo. I am a lead AI researcher and developer advocate at Comet, who has built the open source tool called Opik, and that's what we're going to be using in the workshop today.
Cool.
Awesome. So I'm going to go through a few slides and then pass it back to Tony. The way I wanted to set the stage here is we mentioned ROI of AI. I wanted to show a few examples of why AI observability is so important. And it's kind of a fun way to start this talk. Some of these examples are actually really fun. So the first example of AI just failing in production is this example of a chatbot, which is what we're building today as a customer service chatbot. So Chevy built a chatbot with the purpose of just optimizing their customer service and helping people get the assistance they needed. And it was powered by an LLM. And this guy on Twitter figured out that he could negotiate with this chatbot and convince the chatbot to sell him a Chevy Tahoe for $1, which is quite a deal. So if you're talking about ROI on AI, this is not it. I think it's a beautiful example because it's kind of a fun thing that maybe the developers of this chatbot probably didn't anticipate. I would not have anticipated this, and there's so many other things that I can't think of that could go wrong in production once my app is live. And it can cost the company money. So we work hard to build these AI chatbots, we deploy it, we're proud, and then it does something like this. So this is what we want to avoid. And when we are able to actually measure what used to be somewhat unmeasurable before some of the tools I'm going to show today, we're able to actually detect these issues and intervene before they happen. In this specific case, detecting where the conversation was going and maybe routing it to a human customer service agent to continue the conversation might have been the right solution. But that's a super fun one. Here's an even more recent one that I love even more. So now we've got voice agents in the drive-thru. So a couple of fast food chains are trying this out. So McDonald's took AI for a test drive in their drive-thru. And there was an instance where it just kept adding chicken McNuggets and they couldn't get it to stop. So added hundreds of dollars of chicken McNuggets and then I guess tried to charge a customer for it. So again, an issue that we just don't expect, but because this technology is new and when we do deploy it live, it's going to start to fail in strange and interesting ways. We need that visibility. This can't be a black box. We need to look under the hood and really be able to observe and monitor these things. All right, so this is the workflow that we're going to walk you through setting up. We're going to create an AI customer service chatbot. And then we're going to set up this workflow that allows human-in-the-loop labeling as well as LLM-as-a-Judge eval metrics. So I mentioned it's difficult to measure these kind of business-specific issues. And an out-of-the-box metric is not going to work here. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to use something called LLM-as-a-Judge to create an LLM that is judging the output of our other conversational chatbot LLM to score the quality of that conversation. Look for things like hallucinations, quality issues, going off the rails. So it's a way to customize your metric, and it is essentially a prompt, a call to an LLM, and then you're casting that into a metric, and then that metric you can actually monitor and average over time. So you're actually getting that way to monitor spikes in like misuse, fairness bias, hallucination, all these things that you'd want to intervene and alert on. I want to pause here. How many of you folks are familiar with LLM-as-a-Judge? Yeah, what do you guys think about it? Does it seem useful? Any concerns with it? Okay, good. Yeah, my experience with it is I've built a lot of like AI projects, and my experience with it is that it's fantastic. It is not always exactly mathematically accurate, because what I mentioned is we're going to ask an LLM to give us a number, like score this between 0 and 1. How bad do you think this conversation is? And the LLM is going to generate a reasonable response. But because there's some uncertainty in the LLM responses, you're going to get some variability in that output. So you could end up with like a little bit of noise in the metric that you're getting. And that's the flaw with it. But the value that you get here is that it's totally customizable and it's still directionally indicating. So for example, I put a hallucination metric on one of my AI chatbots. When you see a spike in that, it might not be accurate to like 3 decimal points, but still a spike, and we need to go investigate that, root cause it. So as a metric, a mathematical metric, I think there's some shakiness, but because we need that ability to customize and monitor something over time, it's perfect for that. So I'm going to show you guys how to set that up. The other thing we're going to put into this workflow is human feedback. So imagine that you have a subject matter expert. Maybe it's a customer service agent that's just like the best in the business. We want to get this AI performing at this human's level. You're going to have that human label the inputs and outputs of the AI, tell us what was a good conversation, what was bad. So we're kind of capturing that human's knowledge and insight, and then we're going to tune the LLM-as-a-Judge metric based on that, and start to allow the LLM-as-a-Judge to act the way the human would. So you can start to tune an LLM to score things the way a human would in that feedback loop, and that's how you get that kind of full workflow of deploy the model to production, catch any issues, improve based on the things that you caught, and that's bringing it full circle there. All right, we're going to talk briefly about our tech stack that we're using today. I'll pass it over to Tony.
All right, thank you, Claire. Can you all hear me? All right. So, how many of you know about CrewAI? Have you used it? All right.
Thanks.
Good. All right, pretty familiar. So, for those who haven't used it, it's a Python framework for orchestrating AI agents. Yes, for orchestrating AI agents to build anything that you would like. But I want to go a little deeper here, talking about essentially what that means by just CrewAI. What do we do essentially? So from the name you can tell, CrewAI. The AI piece, I don't need to explain that. You know what that means. But the crew part is where I need to explain, which kind of derived from our name. So if I ask you right now, who's your crew? You'd be like, so-and-so, Tom, Jane, whoever is part of my crew. They're my buddies. So same concept here with the crew. So with the crew, you have a couple of agents. There's one goal they need to do, but each has a specific specialty that they handle within that entire workflow. And I think to make that even sink in a bit more, think of it as a company, because all of us either work at a company or own a company, and you understand company structure. So within a company, just pick any company, there's maybe engineering department, sales, marketing, etc., right? And within each of those departments, for example, engineering, there's different people that work in that department. There's an engineer, software engineer, there's a data scientist, PM, I don't know. The list is endless. And each and every one of those people, assume the humans, the body themselves, that's the agent. Call that the agent. And typically, the body has a brain, right? Everybody has a brain. The brain is the LLM. The body is the agent. And then the hands, they do stuff, and they grab laptops. Yeah, they're tools, essentially. But to kind of extrapolate on that, we've kind of gone very meta into like the company organization, right? So the individuals, software engineer, PM, working at the engineering department, the people are the agents, and then there's tools. Tools are what do you need to do your job. A software engineer needs access to a database, access to an IDE, Wi-Fi, etc., right? And they have different access levels to different things. Same thing to a PM, they might not need access to specific things. And so each of those people also have a job description. What do you need to do? What are your KPIs expected out of you? Same thing with the agents. Within CrewAI, we have a component called tasks. So we have a class for agent and task. Agent is what I just described to you. The agent is the body. It does work, a unit of work. The task on the other side is a unit of work that needs to be done, which think of it as the job description. You get to hire a company, a software engineer or a PM. I'm picking on software engineers a lot. Or sales, you're a sales rep. There's a job that is tied to that. The job is the task. The agent is you. The tools that you use to get that task done are the tools that the agent uses to get the job done. So hopefully that sinks in. And so engineering department or sales or marketing, the entire department is a crew. So for CrewAI, that is a crew. So if you think about a company, you have different crews essentially, right? You have an engineering crew, marketing, sales. So hopefully the concept of the crew is sinking in here. And so within each department as well, you are responsible, as much as you as an individual are responsible for a specific thing, all of what you all do add up to one specific goal that needs to happen. For example, engineering, you need to build a product. When you're done, marketing needs to market that product, sales need to sell it, HR need to hire, etc. So hopefully that kind of helps narrow the process down. And then talking about process, we have process as well. You see that one in the middle. So how do all these agents within the crew communicate? And that's process. It could be sequential. I start, when I finish, I hand over the task to you, you do all the way to the end. Or it could be hierarchical. I have one person at the top, a manager. I delegate tasks to the rest of you. And when you finish, you hand it to me. I figure out who's the best to do the job. So that's the process. Hopefully that makes it a little much easier to understand rather than just throwing out terms, right? Now, just to show a little bit about what that looks like. So the agent is the body. The LLM is the brain that is inside the agent. The tools are what it needs to do the tasks. And then you get the final outcome. And that could be a lot of agents. That's just two agents. Oh, and there's the memory component. Everybody has their own memory in their mind. There's also databases at the company. They store what you did and things like that. So that, hopefully, that kind of paints the picture of what a crew is within CrewAI. Now, it gets even better. There's flows. Now, what is flows? So we figured out we have different crews within a company. I'm going to keep picking on the company because it's much easier to absorb. So the different departments, engineering, marketing, sales, they all do their own thing. But if I'm the CEO, how do I orchestrate all these different departments to do what they need to do so we can make money at the end of the day? That's where flows come in. These are the more dynamic aspect of building your agents. So think of this as more of a high level. How do I coordinate all these crews to do what I need to be done? So you can mix in, you can add code that's just a function and use that within the entire flow. Or you can connect in a sense, you can say, engineering build a product. When you're done, marketing is listening, basically. There's a listener that's just listening. When engineering is done, it just picks up the task, does what it needs to do, hands it over however it wants to. There's a router in there, and we're going to go a little bit deeper into what the flows and all the components of it look like. But essentially, think of crews as the individual units, and flows is more like the bigger control level side of things. So you can basically model an entire company just using the agents as it is. And to get started with CrewAI, it's pretty simple. It's our open source Python package, like I said. UV tool install CrewAI. You can create a scaffolding. You have a scaffolding, basically. It builds all the agents, all the files that you need to, and you can run it as it is, and then you just can modify some of the task descriptions, some of the agents to match what you're trying to actually automate. And here's our docs. If you see any problems in our docs, let me know. I'm the one that runs that, so if there's any issue, I'm the one to blame. All right, hand it over to Claire.
All right, fantastic. So Tony talked you through how to build the AI agent. That is the most important piece. But once it's built and it's moving to production, the question is how to do that monitoring piece. How do you create a way to log all the inputs and outputs so you can see how people are using it? And you also need to place metrics on top of that to monitor and measure any kind of misuse or bad behavior. So that's where Opik comes in. Opik is fully open source and completely free, which I love because that means I don't ever have to do a sales pitch. You guys can just pip install this now and use it today. You can also contribute to a repo. We have an amazing team of engineering folks working on this, and you could do PRs and submit issues. Just interacting with our repo is fully available for you guys. But here's what we do. We debug, evaluate, optimize, and monitor your LLM applications. So it's going to support things like prompt optimization, some automatic ways to optimize your agents once they're already built. And you also have built-in safety guardrails, so these things don't go off the rails. Maybe you need to put business rules, things you're going to not allow it to do. We also support testing, like if you have like CI/CD, we integrate with that. And then finally, production monitoring. So this is a tool that's going to move with whatever agent you already built, whatever framework it is. It's going to move with that agent from the research phase to production. So whatever metrics you're experimenting with and measuring when you're putting this app together, that's also what you can monitor with the same tool once it's live. These are the core features that we're going to use in the workshop today. It's a little bit hard to see, but we'll jump into the actual platform so you can see it there. The first thing is the traces. So I think of this as just logging your inputs and outputs. You want to see every step of the decision making that the agent went through to get to the final output. And if your agent fails, you want to be able to pinpoint exactly what step was problematic. So it allows you to see every step of that logic. We saw Tony's architecture with multiple crews, there's multiple agents, there's probably gonna be some complex routing infrastructure there or complex routing logic. And the beauty of that kind of complex system is that it's also compartmentalized in the way that you have specific agents with specific jobs. So when one of the agents fails or there's an area for improvement, you can pinpoint exactly where, but you need that logging visibility to do that. So you have this kind of clean yet complex system, and this gives you that visibility into it, so it's not a black box anymore. Then once you have the logging, you're logging all those inputs and outputs. The next step is actually layer metrics on top of that. So I have an example here of feedback scores. This could be human evaluations that are collected in the UI, or it could be an LLM-as-a-Judge automatic AI evaluation, but very customizable. You can choose human feedback or LLM feedback, and I will show you how to do that once we get the code running. So let's see. Next step is to jump into some code.
Does that also include agent thought process?
Thought process. Tell me a little bit more about what you mean about the thought process there.
The steps that agent does.
It should, yeah. Every step that the agent takes, if the step is different steps in your system, the way you've coded it up, it will log those different steps. So for example, if you have like a multi-agent system where there's two agents, like first collect this data and then perform this analysis, and that's two different agents, you're gonna be able to log the inputs and outputs of both those steps there. If the reasoning is in a prompt and it's like walk through all these steps within one prompt, that's still gonna look like one step, but you could architect it in different ways to make sure it's separate functions, and then that would allow us to like log it as different.
But
Yeah.
process is breaking it into smaller chunks, right?
Yeah.
Like a tool call, like web search, yeah. So all those interactions are not.
As long as you have it broken into chunks, it's going to log specifically that way, which is a really good design pattern because that allows you that visibility into it. Yeah, good question. Any other questions before we jump into some code? Okay, I will pass it over to Tony to go through the notebook.
Yeah, I think I'm going to show the slide first. Let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're good. All right, so this is a pretty interactive session. So if you want, you can copy that and you can follow along with me. I promise you won't write any code. You'll just be running sales. That's all you're doing. We've optimized this demo for you to be really easy to understand the concepts. That's the point of this workshop, is to make it really easy for you to understand concepts, and you can go build on top of it after this session. And so from the example, you'll see we've adapted it to be really interactive in that sense. And so if you want to follow along, what you will need is a few keys. So I'll let you finish scanning or writing that link down there. You should open a Google Colab notebook. The only thing you need is a browser and access to the internet. And you're going to need an API key for Comet and OpenAI. If you have those, you're ready to go. We'll show you the rest in a second. So let me know if you're done with this, and then I can move to the next slide real quick. All good? I'll wait for you to finish. All right, cool. Just an extra slide. Just if you don't know where to go find the API key, this might be helpful links for you. Platform.openai.com, comet.com/signup. You can sign up for a free account. You get an API key. We'll need to use it when we get to the demo. Cool. All right, is that legible? I'll zoom in a bit. Yeah, good, awesome. Now we're gonna get started with this demo. Okay, maybe just zoom out a little bit. Okay, there you go. So we're gonna get started with this customer support agent. So just to go over a little bit, what we'll be building today, I'm sure you all are already looking at it, see all the heads down, great. We'll be building a customer support agent, and this is a template. Think of it as an idea, a boilerplate, the thing that you can build on top of. It works as it is. You can customize, add extra stuff, and I'll point out some of the stuff that you might want to add in there as well. So we'll have a diagram here. I think this will be very helpful to understand visually what's happening. All right, let's go. All right, there you go. So we have this customer support flow. Remember I talked about crews and flows? This is a flow. So we'll first of all ingest a specific ticket. This will be dummy tickets, of course. You'll be typing in the tickets, as in this case, or creating a way to chat. So the ingest portion, it could just be somebody chatting with your customer support agent. And based on the intent of what the person is asking in the chat, there will be some classification that will happen. In this case, it's a simple function we added to classify a few things. So you can classify it into technical questions, escalations, maybe they need to talk to a human being, billing, and just regular chat. And based on these classifications, there's a router that sits in between the classify section. And depending on if it's a billing question, and then it says, hey, billing, handle this. The billing, and think of this, all these sections, these four of them, the tech, escalate, and billing and chat, all those are separate crews. Remember what I mentioned earlier, there's engineering, marketing departments. So think of this 4 lines here as those different departments. And within each one of them, there's different agents within them that do specific things. So for example, if you think about technical one, right? In there, you can expect maybe there's a agent in there that is really good at understanding all the documentation and policies that the company has, and maybe even the API specs, for example. And so if somebody has a technical question, hey, this API is not working, how do you, I need help. Then there's an agent in there that's going to figure out, oh, let me look at the docs, let me look at the question that this person is asking, can I solve it? And maybe there's a sandbox that you can actually run and test the code and try to fix the error for the person. And if it correctly handles it, and then responds to the person after the action and says, hey, all good, here's the solution, right? It's solved. If it's escalating to a human, it will determine, do I need to escalate this? And maybe in there's an agent that also has all the different employees that work in support. This one is specialized on docs, this one is specialized on billing, or this specific thing. And so it will even go down to the point where you're like, okay, assigned to Jane or Tom, they're really good at this. And so the agent will escalate that, and the broadcast, which we didn't implement, I put as a to-do. You can hook up maybe an MCP to Slack or whatever tool you want to use, and it can tag Tom in the Slack and say, Tom, hey, there's this person asking this question, I think you're best to answer it. You'll just go answer it. And then it's done. And then it tells you also on the chat UI, hey, Tom is going to respond to you, or something like that. Or we'll get back to you in a sense. Same thing here. If it's a billing question, maybe there's people within billing that can help that, and then it just responds back. And then there's also archives. So basically, all the interactions that are happening, you can archive them somewhere, basically save them in memory so that it can be able to reuse and understand what happened throughout. But I think the magic here is having different agents within each of those buckets of them. And if it's just somebody wants to come in there and just talk about weather, or I don't know, what was the scores on the latest football game, the chat agent here handles it because it just has access to the web or whatever, and it can just chat regularly. Until you mention something to do with support, then it will figure out who I need to route and route it to the right person. So hopefully that helps with the context a bit there on what we're building here. So let's go ahead and install a couple of things, but I'm going to let Claire talk a bit about Opik here. All right. There'll be some setup here for Opik, so she can talk a bit about it before we get started.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so the setup is actually super simple, and if you're not following along, don't worry, we're gonna walk through all the code so you can kind of get the same value here. But if you do want to follow along, that's awesome, because I think this is a fantastic template if you want to take this code and maybe personalize it a little bit, make it into your own chatbot. You could really run with what we set up here. So first thing is a pip install. So we're only installing a few things. We got Opik, we got CrewAI, and we've got a few things just for the visualizations as well as the user interface. So that should be fine. The imports are in the cell here. And then the Opik configure is when you just run this cell, you're going to have to copy and paste your API key from Opik. So if you did sign up for the Comet account, the API key is cleverly hidden right here. So just go log into Opik and go to API key here, and you can just directly click copy. I always walk people through that because I do feel like it's a little hidden, but it's also convenient just to be able to copy that, and then that's going to go directly into your notebook when you run this cell. I've already entered it here. So when you run that cell, it's going to prompt you to choose a workspace. You can just press Y to choose the default workspace, and we'll set up the project name and everything further in the code. So just run this cell, get your API key in there, and keep going. The next one is the OpenAI key. If you already have an OpenAI account, you probably already know where to find it. If you need any help, let us know. Tony and I can kind of walk around the room and help you guys while the other is speaking if that becomes a blocker. But this code here will just prompt you to enter your OpenAI key. Do that. I don't want to run through it because I want to show you all my API keys that I have in some Word doc that I shouldn't, but that's already set up there. So it's set up for you guys, just copy and paste your own. Great, so that's the only setup there. I do want to point out before I pass it back over to Tony to go through building the agent, setting up Opik is really just a few lines of Python code. We're working through a Python SDK. We also have TypeScript, but we don't want you to have to spend a lot of time setting up the logging. It's really just going to be a few lines of code, and then we already know how to integrate with CrewAI. So when you run the CrewAI agent, all those traces are going to be automatically logged to Opik. All right?
All right. Awesome. Yeah, that's taking a minute to run.
Yeah.
I'm just going to go through the code anyways, because I don't know if it's running fast on your side or not. But to just going to go over the code. So we created a help function here. And the reason for this is really, this is our LLM piece. So I'll simplify the agent into, or the crew in a sense, to just this one LLM chat. So you're taking in the system prompt, and it's taking in the user prompt of the user chatting on the UI. And the history as well. So we're saving the history and then compressing it over time to keep the context going. And all this is template, remember. You can optimize this in so many different ways. So essentially here, we're passing all that in. We have a simple prompt at the end there, so it's supposed to respond back. So that's the function of all that, and it's async. So it's able to pretty quickly communicate with OpenAI. And it's using, I think we used the GPT-4 mini for this one because it's not much complexity. It's also faster because if you're in a chat user interface, you don't want to wait for too long before it responds. So that's the goal for this. And here are the prompts for the crews. So we have the chat crew, and this is the one that's just, it will chat with you. It will just ask about anything, weather, football, whatever. It will tell you what you need to do. And you can see the prompt there. If it's the billing one, this is the prompt for the billing. You're a precise, calm billing specialist because they need to be calm for some reason. But then that's what they handle, billing questions. Technical as well, same thing. A prompt that kind of specializes on prompts. So things like logging, device, reproduction. You can customize that based on your product, in a sense. What product are you building this agent for? And then optimize that for your product itself. And then escalate is, hey, I've gone through all this. Your question doesn't seem to be falling under any of these categories. Or you just want to talk to a human, so I'm going to escalate it to a human being. And so we're just handling there how the agent should think about that and respond. Yes?
Quick question about how you guys set the prompt there.
Yeah.
Do you use LLMs to create the prompt for you as well?
To optimize? In CrewAI, yes, you can. It's optional. But in CrewAI, you can. We have a parameter that we have within CrewAI that essentially, if you add reasoning on top of it, what it does is looks at your raw prompts that you already have, and then it creates more of like a much clearer understanding of what needs to be done, and it's going to outline it as a reasoning. We call it reasoning. You put reasoning equals to true, and you can set the amount of reasoning steps that it needs to do it. So you can say 3 times. I want you to reason through this 3 times. And what it does is when you kick it off, it takes all your prompts plus the system prompts that we built into the framework, and it looks at it and figures out what's the best way to kind of handle this, and it creates the first prompt, and once it's done, it just passes that into the agent to actually execute that.
And there's no real metric based on how it's coming to that reasoning other than just the foundation model underneath it?
Yes, under the foundation model, and also our prompting, of which you can go back and tweak it yourself as well. Yeah. And this goes back into choice of model that you're using, because the choice of model matters a lot. And it starts, I would even go back to your use case. Figure out your use case. What am I trying to automate here? And then go like way, way deeper. If you had a human being to do this, how would they do it? Like lay it down step by step. And then once you're done with that, then assign an agent to each specific task. And that way you're able to measure that one agent on each of those specific tasks and figure out, did they actually perform well on this? Because if you have one agent doing everything, then how do you know when to optimize what? Because you might optimize a specific prompt, then it just maybe break something else that it was doing very well. But if you have specific agents for each of the specific tasks, you can go down the supply chain and figure out, okay, this is the one that needs optimization, optimize that specifically for what they need to do. Yeah, hopefully that's helpful. So those are prompts. Now we go to the flow itself. How do we put together the flow? So we import a few things here. So we have the start parameter. We call them, they're decorators. So we have the start, listen, and router, and the OR. A few things about the start, listen, and router. So the start one is the entry point for your flow. So in this case, I'm gonna go down here to show you what it looks like. So this is the entry point for our flow here. So if you look at this start method, it's a start method. We're just decorating with a start. And if you look at it, it's just a function and decorating with a start. That's the entry point. And usually where you're taking the user input to trigger something else. And so you want that to be pretty fast, pretty short, and get things moving. And for this one, what we're passing into that start flow is a user message, basically what the person wants to be done. And there's a chat history. We're compressing all the chat history that is taken before so that it understands how to answer the question. And then the thread summary as well. And once that's done, we have a listen. So the listen, what it does exactly what it's called, listen. It listens for something else to finish, and then it does something. So for this one, it just listens for the ingest. And if you see, the decorator itself has the ingest inside the decorator itself. So basically, it's listening for ingest. When ingest is done, it triggers the classify. So the classify will do the classification. And we have created a function here, just a simple one to show the classification. So there's a simple intent there. So if given a given string text that the person enters or the user enters, if it's something like double charge, invoice, billing, return billing, that's a billing question. If it's any of those keywords, it's technical. Escalate. Otherwise, it's just chat. This is simple for the purpose of this demo, but you can essentially replace that with a crew, an agent that handles that. Because it can just figure out the intent itself. It knows who are the crews under the hood, and it can delegate to them as it is. And you can use something like Agentic to be able to make sure that the output that it returns is actually matches like billing tech escalate, because that's what it depends on. And once it's done the classification, then we go to a router. And router basically determines, okay, I've classified as billing. I need to route it to billing department. I need to route it to the technical support crew to handle this question. So the router does that exactly. So it takes in the output that returns from classify. So if it's a billing question, for example, it figures out, okay, I need to send it to billing, and those are just a dictionary of paths that it needs to pass it to. And it returns the label down, and we also save that label in state, so we're able to use it downstream as well. And after the router, and you can have as many routers as you want, and you can have as many listens as you want. You can have as many starts as you want. All the starts will run at the same time. And then we have another listen. This one is for billing. So if the router, you can think of it as, you have the router. Everything after the router basically is just sitting and waiting. What is the router going to throw at me? So if somebody asks a question, if it's a billing question, activate the billing people or the billing crew. They do the work. They return the output. The other ones will just kind of sit there and wait, pretty warm, until they get called upon to do the task. So that's the same thing for the other two. So they stack, escalate as well, and they handle the same thing. And then that's just a post action at the end. And this is where I've kind of added a to-do for you if you want to go and extend this out. So there's broadcast. So for example, if it's a question that needs support, right? Well, somebody, it needs a human to be able to intervene and do something with it. You can broadcast that to Slack, like I mentioned, or email. So you can assign the agent that's going to do the broadcast a tool to send emails or to respond to Slack, for example. And that would handle that piece based on that. And then we also have archive. Archive, you could save all the entire, whatever every agent finishes, you can output that into a vector database or where you store your knowledge base, depending on where you want. So you can add that functionality down there as well. And here's more of like a one-shot example where we just ran to test the flow that we have. So we're calling in the customer agents flow up here, and we are kicking off here async with inputs the user message, and this is the message that the user will enter. And then we have arguments here from Opik. This is to log everything that's going to be happening into Opik, which Claire is going to show us. And then we're passing it a few messages. This is just one-shotted message. So for example, that we're saying, I was double charged on invoice, and you give it the name of the invoice, or API calls are timing out, hey there, and those are 3 different ones to test the 3 different crews that we have. So we have the billing, we have the tech crew, and then the chat crew. And when we run that, this is what you get. So you get, of course, the link to Opik to be able to go and look at the traces as the agents are running. And so you would click that, it will take you to the Opik platform to see that, and Claire is going to show that here in a second. But here you see the first one was the billing. So it did correctly, it identified it was billing, and it started answering, I acknowledge your concern regarding your double charge, blah, 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 blah. And then if you had set already the logic of how to do that, it would then use that information to correctly answer the customer, in this case. And then there's the tech crew, and then there's just chat crew, just saying, hi, how can I help you today? Now, if you go ahead and run an actual, and this code here, before I jump over, this code is just what generates this graph at the top. Remember the graph that I showed you all in the beginning? This one right here. So these were, I didn't just generate this out of anywhere. So once you build the crew itself, or the flow itself, you can actually run the name of your flow, .plot, and it generates this as an HTML for you. And it's usually saved on the side here. Since that did not run, it's not showing. But that's where it would be saved, and you can actually use that anywhere else to show people that, this is how the dependency structure looks like for this agent. All right, now the conversational wrapper. So I decided to use Gradio. I used to work at Streamlit, which they probably would not like this. But I use Gradio for this because it's easier. But I wrapped a simple class here to handle the conversation. And that's the purpose of this piece here. And if we go down here to the Gradio UI itself, once you run this, it essentially wraps all the agents that we've built at the top into a UI that somebody can just chat with it. So when you run that, it generates a UI, and this is what it would look like if it's still running. Oh, it's not running because...
I wonder if the internet is not...
Yeah, it's pretty slow. I don't know if it's running on your side. It should run if you have added all those keys.
It's been doing an import for 12 minutes, so
yeah.
I think we're
lagging.
I think it's the internet.
Yeah.
You guys have it working?
It's working on yours? Oh, cool. I'm glad it's working on your side. Yeah. But this is how it would look like. So when you're chatting as you go in on Gradio, it's basically an app, and you can see like, hey, what's up? You can just tell it, what's the weather today? The chat crew is gonna handle that. It will tell you stuff like, hey, cool. I don't know, but I'm just here to help you with support questions, for example. And it will keep logging the chats here. You'll see the thread here. You could change that from verbose true to verbose false. So that, and here it is. It's not on that one, it's the main agent. Verbose basically makes it not print out all those stuff on the chat down here. So you won't be able to see all this. But that's it, essentially, on the agent side of things. I'll let Claire talk about the tracing now, because we've run the agents, stuff has happened. How do we then look at what's been outputted and learn from it, and maybe help you even debug your agents better with it? So.
Awesome, yeah, glad to hear some of y'all are already getting it working. That is really fast. So once you have it working and you have the chat interface up, you can chat with it a little bit, and every interaction is going to be logged to Opik. So here's what it looks like. Each one of these is an individual trace. So you saw in Tony's diagram, there's a lot of different agents here, and the orchestration is routing between different possible paths to solve the customer's problem. Each call to an LLM, each kind of like path through that trajectory is a trace. And within the trace is a span. So I'll click into one of these examples, and you can see here, it's kind of a complex architecture, but we have a really clean visualization now of that complex architecture. So here you can see the inputs and outputs. You can see the user message, the chat history, and all of that. So if there was anything strange happening here, any conversation that you would want to flag or anything like that, you'd be able to see it here, and a human evaluator could review it. Within the trace, you have multiple spans. So this is the trace here, and then the spans are steps within the trace. So an example of that might be like the user says hi, and the chatbot just says hello back. This is my purpose. What can I help you with? That's not really a trace. That's just kind of spans within that trace. And then finally, we're going to find our purpose. There's going to be a few calls to an LLM. Maybe we route to a different department, things like that. So that's all going to be traced right here. One thing to notice is feedback scores. So we can create two different kinds. We can do human review, which is that human labeling. So we could have a subject matter expert come in here and add some kind of tag and annotation to this. Or you could have an LLM automatically score these traces, and that's through the LLM-as-a-Judge metric, which I'll walk through. But before I go there, I also want to show you threads. So we talked about traces. The threads are an entire conversation thread. The reason conversation threads are important here, specifically for chatbots, is the human AI conversation can be somewhat of a chaotic pattern. You can have someone chatting with a chatbot, trying to get help, and then their phone rings, and they go take a meeting, and they forget, and then they come back and finish the conversation. And it sometimes takes a few backs and forths between the human and AI to accomplish whatever goal the human came to the conversation with. And so just evaluating at the thread level, which is or just evaluating at the trace level, which is just that path through the architecture once, it's not enough to tell us like, hey, did this user get what they needed from this conversation? So we've also looped this up at the thread level, which is really, it's just a thread ID. You can see here I'm generating a unique ID for each conversation thread, and it can include multiple traces through this architecture. But because it's all grouped together, you as like a human annotator or developer reviewing this, you can go in and look at that entire customer's journey through your chatbot and identify where there might be issues. So within the thread here, I can click into it and get that really nice view here of the messages of what the user actually saw. We have conversation history included here, so as there's a new message, every step you see additional information there. Cool, so we're logging inputs and outputs, but let's get to the actual evaluation of them. So you can do human annotations, and you can also do the AI annotations. I set up an AI annotation called user frustration because with a chatbot, that's what I'm most concerned about. I want to know if the user, you guys have probably felt it, you're chatting with a chatbot and it's just not helping you the way you wanted it to help, and you might start expressing frustration towards that AI. When that happens, those are the areas where I want my developer to go in, identify what the AI is doing wrong, and fix the system so we actually start meeting the customer's expectations. So user frustration was the first thing I wanted to measure. This is an LLM-as-a-Judge metric, so it essentially is another LLM that's going to look at the inputs and outputs and run its own evaluation, and it's just a prompt itself. And anytime I log a conversation, I'm going to automatically score it. This is a 0.1. And you also roll over and you get an explanation of why. So this is additionally helpful because not only are you getting a metric, but you're also getting like a little bit of a clue if you are trying to debug this of what could be going wrong with the LLM. So let me show you how I create this. I have a bunch of online evaluations here. This is the one I created for this workshop. So I've got user frustration here. You can see it's correlated with this project. But I'll go into edit it to show you exactly what it is. It is actually just a call to an LLM with a prompt. So you can see the prompt here is defining exactly what frustration means, putting it on a scale. 1 would be extreme frustration and anger. The 0.1, which is what we got out of that last conversation, is everything's neutral, positive, and fine. So we've got a bit of a scale here from 0 to 1. And anytime you log a conversation, this is going to automatically run over your traces. The great thing about this is because we're already logging the traces and the threads and the spans, like all those inputs and outputs, you can now, Opik now knows your data schema. So you can place these evals anywhere within that schema. If you want to eval a very specific point in that agent diagram, or if you want to evaluate the whole thing end to end, you can do that here. So this is where you just define the schema. All you have to do is write that prompt, create the rule, and then every time you go back here and log the, or have a conversation, it will automatically score here and show up. And then you're also going to see it here, so you can see I added the metric today. And so any new data that comes through is going to get a metric in this column. And I can toggle these columns. I could choose to see different ones, add many more metrics. But it's giving you that view of, over time, how these conversations are going. So I want to pause there. I just walked you all through how to set up LLM-as-a-Judge. It is somewhat of a complex topic. Any questions or anything stand out to folks? Yes?
Yeah, I was kind of curious. I mean, does this answer your initial problem statement of like customer actually wanted to buy Chevy for $1 and that's a good deal? Because based off of this, I mean, I'm a happy customer because I just got a $1 deal.
You are exactly right. And I think that's, where do I have this? Eval. I think that's exactly, like, if I just guess, I don't know exactly what was behind that Chevy model, but like a prompt like that, when we're building customer service agents, we instruct it in the prompt to be super helpful and accommodating. So I can guess that might have been the AI trying to probably do what it was told to do and be helpful. Your intuition here is correct. Like, this user frustration is not going to pick up that issue. Typically what I do when I build out systems like this is I end up with a whole suite of metrics that cover a lot of different things that could go wrong. Some of them are kind of broad, like user frustration can apply to really any chatbot customer service scenario. And some of them are like really specific. Like, I'll give you an example. I created a recipe generator and it kept getting the ingredients quantity wrong. So I got an LLM-as-a-Judge metric to look specifically at recipe, quality, and ingredients and cook time. That's not something I could measure before I had LLM-as-a-Judge metric. So I ended up with this like whole set of metrics that were some out of the box, some basic, but it ended up covering a broad range of things that could go wrong. So in the Chevy example, like maybe you would want to have a specific set of things that it's allowed to do and not allowed to do. Don't make any sales, don't finalize any sales, don't agree to any pricing terms. And then if those are violated in any of the metrics, then you'd be able to intervene. Yeah, good question. Anything else? Yeah.
So how do you find a balance between like using like human annotations versus like being able to hand it off as LLM-as-a-Judge? Like if you're just starting off building.
Yeah, I think it really depends on the use case. So typically what I'm seeing is the human annotations is expensive and time consuming. And also a lot of humans kind of don't want to do it either. So I try to get like a good sample of data, and I see our customers doing this is they'll get like, it just depends on the use case, how much is enough there, and there might be like some statistical tests on that. But if you get a good enough sample of annotated data, then you can start to tune the LLM-as-a-Judge to look for the things they were looking for. And I find this is pretty much most useful in production if you like collect some data, maybe random sample it at the end of every week, have the human look at it, and then you have like a bit of a system that's adapting over time, because we know these patterns change over time. So if I deployed this today and just like let it go for a year, like new things might come up that I need to monitor for that I haven't. So having some kind of like cadence there, potentially some automations, but that moves more into like agent optimization, which is more automatic and not what the workshop is on, but that's definitely something I would look at there as well. Yeah. That's everything I wanted to walk through with LLM-as-a-Judge. Do we want to open for more broad questions?
Yeah, here's a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you have hundreds of those threads, like you have a lot of evaluation result. How do you like find the most like how you rank them? How you alert like the humans to say, hey, you need to look at those threads because those things the frustration level is very high.
There's a few ways to think about that. So if I just want a human to generally evaluate for everything they should be looking at, and then I'm going to craft metrics after that, I'm going to randomly sample and try to get like a representative sample, because I don't really know what could go wrong yet. If I'm trying to pull a sample of conversations where I feel like there was a high frustration score, and I've already got the LLM-as-a-Judge metric there, I might go with like a pool that already has a high frustration score, have the human look at that, try to explain it, figure out how to improve the model from that, and go from there. So I think there's a few kind of different ways to go, to like depending on the phase of the project. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I'll answer the question. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So if I have this right, you guys are bringing in the entire conversation for each agent as it's running in production.
Yes.
Right, so obviously that text is going to add up pretty quickly.
Yes.
Would you recommend or maybe have like a viewpoint on summarizing a lot of this data where maybe a lot of the tokens are not going to be specifically towards the user frustration aspect? that you can kind of, keep your data small?
Yeah, so the problem that you end up with this is, you guys are asking all the right questions. It's difficult to scale something like this because it's expensive. This is a call to OpenAI, ChatGPT 5. So anytime I want to get an eval, I am making that expensive call. So there's a few ways around this. You can host your own models. That's also expensive. Sampling actually is really when we're working with big data, sampling is kind of always my answer, but random sampling, getting a representative sample, because basically we want to be able to maintain these things at scale, but still minimize the costs. And so if we can figure out the right sampling strategy to score enough of these conversations that we can detect the issues directionally, go in there and fix them, that would be the approach I recommend. And then I would recommend guardrails for serious issues. If it's a fairness, bias, any kind of legal issue, at that point you just stop the conversation, route to a human, so you actually intervene. But if you're just scoring oh, was this user frustrated? I don't feel like I need to intervene. It's okay to let that happen and then just fix the model tomorrow kind of thing. I would do a sample just to maintain costs.
Good questions.
The sample would make sense if it is a regular event, which you don't want it to be, right? But if it is a rare event, sampling would not help so much.
Yes. So that's a whole field of mathematics with the rare event detection. So you're definitely thinking about that, right? If we're sampling, but we're trying to detect a rare event, probably the fraud with the Chevy Tahoe, that's probably pretty rare until someone figures it out and starts posting about it. That would be a rare event detection kind of algorithm, which is very different, but probably something you could build around this kind of infrastructure in Python. Yeah. Any questions for Tony on the agent stuff?
Yeah, I had a question on the productionizing the CrewAI thing. So same fast API or something like that. What are the steps to put it in a Docker or productionize it?
Yeah, you can definitely wrap even the agents themselves as API endpoints, and you can trigger them in a sense. You not think about that as much, but I think if you want to do this, I've seen people do this. We don't have a recipe out there of do this, because then why would we do that when we have the enterprise platform? That's a different conversation for another time. But I think it's very possible. You can put in a Docker container, deploy them. We've gone through the trouble of doing that, so we know the kind of where bottlenecks happen, especially when you go to scale. We switched now to using Kubernetes to save up on costs. If you look at our platform, we were charging $99 a month for usage a few weeks ago, but now we just launched our V1 platform the other day, I think earlier this week, and now the base, we have a free tier and then we have a $25 starting point. So you can see that we really shrunk down that cost there. And if you're interested, we also launched this week more vibe coding. So you can vibe code these agents that we just built here on the platform itself. And you just tell it what you want to automate. We use the CrewAI flows under the hood to build you crews that then automate what you're trying to automate. And then you auth into tools like your Gmail, your Google Calendar, whatever you want to auth into. And so it has your role-based access already tied into those, and your agent can use them to access your emails and do things that you need to be doing. And sometimes if the tool doesn't exist, it will build the tool itself and attach it to the agent, the correct agent that you want it to do. And you just run it. If it works, deploy. You get an API endpoint once you deploy, and a bearer token, so you can basically hook that up to anything else. Or you can download it as an MCP server, the entire agent, and then you can use it everywhere else where an MCP server is accepted. We're also working on adding MCP servers, so you can use them as a remote connector within the agents. You have a question? Yeah, let me show you. It's better to show rather than...
This is pretty cool.
Yeah. So let's get here. Actually...
You want to use your laptop?
Yeah, let me use mine.
Yeah. There you go.
All right, let me just open a new window real quick.
How many of you guys are vibe coding? Nice.
Yeah.
It's definitely made us more efficient.
Well, that's not going to work.
Oh, I have an adapter.
You haven't done- oh, cool.
You do enough conferences, you end up very prepared.
Yes.
Look at that.
Good job.
I knew this might happen. There you go.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Yay, we're live. So
Nice.
this is the platform. When you log in the first time for you, it's app.crewai.com. If you're interested in it, there's a free tier. You can deploy a couple few agents to play around with it. But you won't have any of this. This is some of my automations essentially. But you won't have any of this. It will just be an empty spot. So real quickly to go through it, you can create your crews that we just, for example, the one we created, zip it and upload as a zip file here. That's one option. You can also just save it to GitHub, and then from there, you're able to pick the repo that where you have it, pick it, and deploy directly on here. And then for each one of them, you can add an API key. So you can add it as bulk or individual ones, and that agent will require, or any other tool API that you have that the agent will use. So that's on deployment side of things. But this is on the manual side of stuff. Now, to the studio part, which is the vibe coding aspect of it. So this is how it looks like. It looks very simple right now. You can tell because we don't have front-end engineers. We're all back-end engineers there. So yeah, forgive us. We'll do better next time. So this is the best we could do. But if you look at this, actually, let me just, who has an interesting, small use case we can, or invoice?
Analyzing, like given an invoice, get all the.
I don't think I have a connector. And what I mean by that is if you come here to tools that I have access to, basically, when I auth into any of these tools, my agent will have access to that tool to use it. So you can see it's saying coming soon, but I should have that already. So you should already add auth into some of these tools. And so let's see. So we have a couple. We're adding some more. But if we go here, I'm going to use a very simple example. Let's say create an agent that can access my calendar and summarize all the meetings. Meeting scheduled for a given week, for example, and send the summary to my email, for example, just to test it. And so it's going to start thinking, and the thinking part is where we have the crew deployed under the hood that does the thinking. We have agents, and they understand how our framework works, so it's going to build that itself under the hood. And when it starts building, you'll see it start populating here. So it will build the agent, it will build the task, and then it will assign the tools that needs to be assigned, and you will see it drawing the graphs. Or if you don't like that, you can come here and drag and drop these pieces to the middle here if you like, if you want to do things a bit manual. But in this case, we'll wait for it to build here. So it's going to think through it, generate a reasoning, and then start building it based on that simple description. So it's going to optimize this prompt. Got you from earlier. And so if you look here also, we have tools. So we have some tools that already built into the platform that it can use. And so what we're doing here, this agent, while it's still thinking and building it, it's going to figure out, okay, this is what I need to automate, this is the agents I'm going to need, and it's going to build those agents in there and the tasks for each of those agents. And then it's going to look through here and figure out, okay, what integrations and tools do I have to actually make this agent work? So it's going to, we told it to look at my calendar, summarize it, and send it to my email, right? So it needs calendar tool and email tool. And also it's going to figure out basically the tools within maybe your Gmail and your calendar that needs to do the job. So it's going to do the minimal auth. So it's going to figure out, I need to write the email. I don't need to read the email. So it's just going to toggle on the write email and send email. And then it's going to toggle the read information from calendar, but not write anything. So it's not going to edit anything. And you can override that by going in specifically into the tool. So this is taking a minute. This might be a Wi-Fi issue. All right, while that is running, maybe it's a good idea. I think I've built one of those before, so let's come here and look at it. All right, let's look at this one. This one is live. So this is a social media management automation, so social media content. So there's a triggers here. So you can hook up a trigger, an event that basically triggers your agent. It could be a calendar, something comes to your calendar. It could be your email comes in, for example. So you can trigger it to the point where it just listens, sits there. You probably heard about ambient agent, right? They just sit there until something happens. So you might just tell it, I want you to sit and wait. If an email comes in that matches this criteria, maybe somebody's trying to sponsor you, you're like, hey, somebody's offering sponsorship, then send that to the agents to do something with it, maybe to go review, find information about the person, and then maybe write a response back to them. That's essentially what we mean by triggers and events here. And this one was created, and you can see the chat that I had with it here on the side. So it started very simple. I told it to create a crew that schedules and publishes social media content across multiple platforms. For that, there's a lot of tools that are going to be involved, and I don't think I have all those tools. And here you can see created all this by itself. So I figured out need a social media content strategist, content creator and visual designer, social media analytics, and social media scheduler and publisher. And it created all the tools as well for it. So, and the cool thing about it too, you will see the prompts that it generated for each. So you see the attributes, so you see for the agent, you see the goal, backstory, and also the model and everything. So you can go in here and actually modify this however much you want. So you can change this, you can tweak the prompt to match what you need. But what that looks like once you've deployed it, then come here to automations. The Wi-Fi is not really doing us justice today. All right, so this is the one that I created a few weeks back. And if you look at this, we have the calendar event analyst, calendar summarizer, and email communication. So it does exactly what we just did with the other one. So if we run this is deployed. So this is the URL, and this is the bearer token. And so I can hook that up somewhere else, build a UI for it if I want, and run it. But if I want to run this, I can run it here. There's so many places to run. So you can run the automation. It'll ask you for your time period. So let's say last week. And recipient email, I can just put my own work email. If I hit execute, if there's any error, it's probably just authenticating into the tools themselves, that it's going to need the calendar and my email. So it's already kicking off there. And we can go back as well to Studio, actually the automations. So you have options here as well. So for that, you'll see here, this is the MCP server that I mentioned. You can export as an MCP server. You can export as a React component. Then you can build on top of it. Or if it's just a chat bot, in a sense, we already wrap it for you in a chat UI. Looks like ChatGPT. Then you can just start chatting with it here directly, and it's going to execute on the other side. So these are some chats that I did a few weeks ago here. And it executed those. And you can deploy it as well pretty quickly. Copy the link, share with anybody on your team, and they can use it as well. So that's the goal for that. And while that one is running, we can go to traces. We have traces, which you can then, all right, that didn't even run yet. Oh, there it is. So this is running. So it's not even kicked off anything yet, but it should be starting running, the one we just ran. But it would essentially look like, let me see if I already captured that somewhere. So this is how it would look like, for example. This is just a researcher. It's not related to the one we did, but it would look like this. You'll be able to see the messages, the raw data, LLM call, and the completion. You'll see the output that it generated, for example. Question?
So the one which you deployed and showed where you can chat to the agent, so that's part of the free tier, or is it part of the enterprise?
It's part of the free tier. The free tier, we limit basically on how many executions can you do, because that costs money, and it costs us on hosting side as well. So I think we limit you to one agent you can deploy, one crew essentially, and then how many runs you can run on it before you run out of your credits. The $25 tier also has specific limitations, all the way up to enterprise. We even have customers that are working in the regulated industries, highly regulated, like finance, military, and they usually like, okay, we would love to use this, but we want to use it in our self-hosted environment. So we actually have this on AWS Marketplace. We call it factory setting. So they can go there, buy the license, download the image, will help you deploy it on your own premise, and you can run it within your own containered environment. So we're actually seeing a lot of uptick on that vertical. A lot of people want everything within a walled garden, yeah. And we don't give you the LLM, so you bring your own LLMs too, because people are like, hey, maybe you're seeing my prompt. So no, we let you bring your own LLMs and configure them as well. So hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Good. All right.
This is just preview or GA?
It's GA. App.CrewAI.com. You can play with that. There's a free tier. Play around with it if you like it. Yes.
You can connect to any database.
Sorry?
We can connect to any database.
Yes, you can build your own tool to connect to any database if we don't support it already. Yeah. So you want the agent. I'm assuming here, what database would you want to build for? I want to Postgres. Yeah, you can build one for Postgres very easily. We have some example code. I should have some that shows how to do those connections. Basically, if it's an API, you can just wrap that as a CrewAI tool and just give it to the agent. The agent is able to call that. Or use MCP, because everybody's going to MCP. And there's a way to use MCP within the platform as well.
Do you have any integration with observability tools like Grafana or Datadog?
Yes, we have one with Comet as well.
Yeah, I think
Yes. we have one with Comet.
I like Grafana and Datadog
Yeah,
too.
you're going in the right direction.
But
man.
Opik's built specifically for LLMs, so all the real like stuff you need to log there, and like the LLM-as-a-Judge on top of that is going to be built in, and we're open source.
Cool.
But let us know how we do in the bake-off.
Yeah, we have a couple here under observability. So if you go to our docs.creai.com, you'll be able to go under observability here, and you'll see a whole bunch of them here. See LangDB, OpenLit, LangFuse, MLflow. A lot of people like MLflow. It's open source as well. Arise, Opik, yeah, Portkey, and we've Patronus as well. And if we don't have it, it's easy to support. So if you have your own, we have some clients specifically that they wanted to port it to their specific personal observability that they have. So it's easy to use because we use OpenTelemetry under the hood as well. So if you can just create connections around that, especially for open source, you can dump it whatever you want to dump the data to. Yeah.
Actually, I'm using Airtable.
Okay.
I'm gathering the user feedback and the log at Airtable.
And
Is it possible to use Airtable
to CrewAI?
CrewAI?
I want to say not for now. So if you look at the connectors we have here under tools and integrations, those would end up falling under here. So at some point, so the ones we have here right now are the ones that most of our customers are asking for. So Google Docs, Google Slides, and things like that. But if somebody asks for Airtable and we get enough traction, I'm sure we will add more of this. So this list here will be populated and you'll see more of them. But if you want to get ahead of this and you don't want to wait for us to do this, you can build your own tools as well. So yeah, you can go to Airtable. They probably have API connectors, right? And you can wrap those with a CrewAI tool decorator, essentially. So write how you would usually write, pull in data, write data back, functions as you would, and wrap it with a CrewAI tool, and then pass that to the agent as a tool, and the agent is going to be able to use it. And even better, on the enterprise side, once you build that tool and it works locally, you can actually push it to the platform itself, and this is how it would look like. So CrewAI tool, create your tool, it creates a scaffolding. You don't have to think about the code, and then you just add your APIs and tool calling, test it. If it works, CrewAI tool publish, it publishes here, and you'll see it show up like that one that I have. And if you want to use that tool also locally, you can also download from here to use it locally. But the cool thing as well, if you're using this with a part of a team or for a company, you can restrict who has access to this tool. So you can say only engineering, marketing, or private, only for you. And then your agent will be able to use it as well.
I think about OPIC, I don't know.
Opik?
Opik.
Yeah.
Is it possible to
To use Opik?
use
Yeah.
for
Yeah. We already have the integration with them. It's the few lines that we added in the code, which is just a few lines of code that we added.
Yeah,
earlier.
we built an automatic integration.
Yeah.
Grafana, Datadog, that's actually an interesting question though, because like Opik is really LLM monitoring and like ML model monitoring, which is a little bit of a different problem because what Tony is showing is like you're building a working piece of software. So you do need like the API latency monitoring and like that like real software monitoring as well. So I would actually, in this scenario that he's walking us through, I'd actually use both. Yeah.
Cool. And then there's just the agent repository because some people are like, well, I want a specific agent. I don't need to recreate it all the time. So you can create one, store it in there. So anytime you need to use it, just pull it, or you can share with people within your company and they can use the same agent as well. So you can add as many as you need to. I think that's the biggest thing. Let's see, billing might be my choice. Yeah, so here's this. So free plan, $25 a month. The rest contact sales. Cool. Any other questions? All good? I know some few people had mentioned that they have agents in production. I wonder what you do?
Yeah, I built it on
Builder.io? Sorry, what does it do? Sorry.
It's kind of a slam book.
Oh, there's a mic.
No, I built a similar one, but not using CrewAI. I did not know.
Okay.
And I did launch an application which act as a slam book for connecting people in our school network. I vibe coded it using builder.io. I used Superbase, like the Postgres database, to store the data, and used Netlify for the server, and also used Fly for the dev server. So operating two environments, and it's kind of costing me $9 per month.
$9?
Because I exhausted the free plan.
Oh, yeah. $9 is good. You're doing good. How much workloads are you putting through it?
Yeah.
What's the workload that that agent is taking in? Is it using a lot?
It's a single page application basically.
Okay.
So you enter data and then view the data.
Okay, cool. Are there any things that you look at and you want optimizations on?
And then update. Yeah, I'm kind of gonna experiment, so I'll try.
Yeah, experiments are costly right now, but it's cool. Good to hear that. Anybody else building something cool with agents? Or at least do you have one that you use regularly to do something that you used to do? It could even be summarizing stuff or some simple things like that. You have another one? Go ahead.
I like the calendar one. I kind of tried similarly, but if we have like Gmail, Outlook, that's a real world problem. Like I have a personal university emails, personal emails, work emails, and then somebody asking for an appointments. I cannot able to manage my day. I want to make use of it, and then work doesn't share the whatever the calendar is. It can show busy, but not. But how do we integrate a single calendar so that you manage your day, both inside work, outside work?
Yeah, that's calendar is always a mess, right? I've played around with it as well, but to some extent, I think I've just kind of come down to the fact that I just want to do it. I don't want it to do it.
Yeah,
for me.
and I kind of tried adding every email as a subscription to everyone, but work is restricted. So work shows like occupied or busy, but others I could get it to my Gmail.
Nice.
It's kind of like I did not use anything LLM. I just asked ChatGPT how to do.
Yeah, that's a good way to start. I think what I've built before and it's worked a while is last year when we were starting off, it was only a few of us, and so it's a lot of work to go around with only 8 people. So what I ended up doing, I was getting a lot of calls, especially for sales, and I was being tagged into sales. So I figured, I could simplify this process. So any appointments that I was getting, I had an agent to basically go do some work and figure out who that person is, find out maybe what podcast they've been on, if they created content, they write blogs, what are they interested in technically, and then write a simple mock-down output file of who they are, what are the main things that I should talk to them about. It already knows what I like, so it already figured out where we have commonalities and things like that. So when you go to the meeting, you kind of prepared in a sense. That worked a little bit for a while. I don't use it as much anymore, but that was pretty helpful. Yeah. Cool.
All right, well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you all.